Hi, if you're in the market for a freestanding cooker, then it can be really confusing because there are so many to choose from. So what I've done is I've come up with 10 things to consider before buying a freestanding cooker. So let's have a look. Just before we start, all I normally say is please click subscribe on my YouTube channel. What I normally do is I normally cover things like household appliances, vacuum cleaners. There's quite a lot that I tend to cover with some of my product videos. So just before we start, just click the subscribe button and then we're ready to go. Now, although this 10 is in no particular order, I would consider the first 2 or 3 the most important. And I suppose the first one really to go on is the size of the cooker. What you need to do is, before you think about ordering a cooker, have a measure of the gap that you've got. Don't measure the current cooker that's in there, have a measure of the gap that you've got. And what we'd normally recommend is trying to fill that gap. So if you have got around a 60cm space, then try and get as near to that space as you can. What you'll find is some people go for a 50cm cooker in a 60cm gap, and to be fair, it looks silly and it is a dirt trap down the sides. Sizes of cookers vary a huge amount. You'll find they start around 50cm wide, 55, 60. Then they tend to go into the slightly wider like range cookers, where you go into the realms of 90, 100, 120, even 150. Some of the commercial or professional cookers go even wider than that. But for the main domestic market, in the freestanding cookers, they're mainly either 50, 55 or 60cm. So number 2 on the list, and this is also a very important one, is the type of fuel that you want your cooker to be. And what I mean by this is, do you want it electric or gas? Now, what we are finding is that electric is really leading the way now. Quite a few people are tending to shy away from gas appliances, and even manufacturers are starting to not make as many. We're finding that electric is really taking the forefront now. But what we are finding is that you have got other options as well, apart from gas and electric. You've got things like dual fuel cookers, where you have a different fuel for the oven and the hob. You've also got LPG, so if you have got a gas cooker, if it needs to be on bottle gas, then you need to make sure that the jets on the cooker are suitable for using with bottled gas. So it's all those things you need to consider, but that's number 2 on the list, the fuel of the cooker. So also, once you've decided on the fuel of the cooker, then I suppose connected to that is the type of hob that you want. So clearly, if you're going for a gas hob, then it will be a gas type of hob. But if you are looking at electric, then there are quite a few other options to choose from. The first type is this. This is called a sealed plate hob. These tend to be on cheaper cookers, and I'll be honest, we don't tend to recommend that kind of hob when we're talking to customers. The main downsides of the sealed plate hob are they're a bit more fiddly to keep clean. Also, they're a lot slower to heat up. The main, I suppose, cookers that people tend to go for now are ceramic. The main advantage of the ceramic is, well, clearly as you can see here, it's like a sheet of glass. They're a lot easier to keep clean, and as far as heating up, they're a lot quicker than the sealed plate hob. The next one to consider is called induction, and the main advantage of induction is, again, it's a lot quicker to heat up than a ceramic hob like this. What you'll also find with induction is that it's a lot more efficient, so it will cost less to run. Also, it will only heat up the area on the ring that is required. What I mean by that is, if you put a pan on there, then it will only actually heat up the area that is required. So again, that can save on electricity. The main downside with induction is that you do need to make sure that the pans that you've got are suitable. So this type here, this one is okay. What I'd always recommend is, if you are buying new pans, then just have a look on the bottom. I don't know if you can see on there, but that gives you an indication as to what kind of pans you can use on the hob. On this particular one, then this does say it's suitable for induction, ceramic, gas and the standard electric sealed plate hob. But just make sure that they are suitable. And the way to test is, if you get a magnet, so if you've already got some pans, if you get a magnet, pop it on the bottom. If it sticks, then that means it will be suitable for induction. If it doesn't stick, then it means it's not suitable, and it means if you are buying an induction cooker, then you will need to buy some new pans beforehand. So number 2 was quite in depth as far as the fuel of the cooker and the type of hob, but number 3 is a little bit simpler, and that's how many ovens has the cooker got. And what I mean by that is, on this one, this is a Blomberg cooker that we do, and with this one, this has got a double oven, which means you've got one oven at the bottom and one oven at the top. Now I know that sounds quite simple, but some cookers, even though they have 2 doors on them, might only be a single oven, which means one oven at the bottom and the grill at the top. They're normally classed as twin cavity. Clearly, if you're going into things like range cookers, then you've normally either got 2 ovens or 3 or 4 ovens, but just check to have a measure of things like your pans as well, because we do find a lot of people have got pans, which some of them are quite expensive. Then just have a measure of the pans that you've got and make sure they fit in the oven. But for a lot of people, this really stems down to how much cooking you actually do. For some people, we just find if for example you're living on your own, then just having one oven at the bottom and a grill at the top could be enough. If you've got a big family of say 4 or 5 people, then having a range cooker where you've got the 2 or 3 ovens can make a big difference, especially when it comes to if you've got friends around and if you're doing a huge meal, or some people do batch cooking where you cook in several meals at once, then having several ovens can really pay off and it can save a huge amount of time. Now number 4 on the list, and I suppose this is one job that a lot of people really hate, is how easy is the oven to clean. And what I mean by this is, are there any features in here to make life easier for you? Clearly if you have someone else to clean the oven, then it's not too much of an issue, but there's still a lot of people that clean their own ovens, and I must admit it's one job we hate doing at home. So when I bought a new cooker recently, then I made sure that one of the first things I was looking at was how easy is the oven to clean. So what I recommend is just have a look inside, have a look in the specification to see if there are any features on the oven. So things like this, these are catalytic liners, and what you'll find is that this can make life a bit easier. Also on quite a few other cookers, you've actually got the racks inside of the oven rather than actually having it indented here. I suppose the main advantage of that type is that you can actually unscrew the racks from the side of the oven and then just take them out and pop them in the dishwasher. So that just makes life a lot easier when it comes to cleaning. So that's number 4 on the list. Just have a look to see if there are any features to make life easier when it comes to cleaning the oven. So that tends to lead into number 5 quite nicely, and this is what type of door that the cooker has. And what I mean by that is, does it have a glass door or is it just a solid metal door? Now for some people when they're buying a cooker it might not sound a priority, but if you are cooking things, especially if you're baking say a cake, then it can be quite important to see the progress of it. And clearly if you're going to open the door on a sponge that's half cooked, then it could drop, and that can be very frustrating. So just have a look as to what type of door, and also if it is a glass door, then just make sure that the glass is easy to clean as well. That's sort of going back to the last thing to consider. So on this cooker, then you've actually got a couple of screws in here, and what we can do is we can just take the glass out, and that makes it a lot easier to keep clean. Quite a few other cookers give you the option just to slide the glass out, but it's something that I would always recommend. I must admit there are quite a few things like range cookers where you have got a solid door down the side, if you're going for say a 90cm cooker, and although that's very good, if you are doing a lot of cooking, especially cake baking in the side, then it can be a little bit frustrating because you can't see what's going on. So personally I'd always recommend having a look for a cooker with a glass door, especially if you want to see what's going on. So number 6 on the list is, does the cooker have a lid? Now I know this is mainly relevant to gas or dual fuel cookers, but when we're talking to customers, then I'd always recommend trying to have a look for one with a lid, and there are a couple of advantages. The first one is it does provide a splashback when you're cooking, so if something does splash, then it does make it a lot easier to keep clean. You just wipe the glass and away you go. Also, when the lid's down, then it can provide some extra working space. If you live in quite a small kitchen, then if you have got an electric cooker, especially a ceramic or induction, then you'll know that on the odd occasion you have used the top of your cooker just to help as extra workspace. And that's why I try and recommend going for one with a lid. It just gives you a little bit of extra space to work on as well. Now I know you can't do a huge amount because it's only glass, but it can help on the odd occasion. Now number 7 on the list is have a look at the different functions that the cooker has for the oven. Now this is a category that I could talk for ages about, but I will just cover it briefly. So depending on what you cook, just have a look to see what functions the oven has. And what I mean by that is some cookers have things like slow cook functions. So if you do a lot of slow cooking, then some cookers will cook at lower temperatures, which is brilliant. Things like bread proving. Does the cooker have things like pizza settings, where you've just got the bottom and the top of the oven cooking rather than fan cooking? Clearly make sure that the oven has the fan assisted cooking. You'll find the main advantage with fan cooking is that it's a lot more even. So there's a huge amount to look at, but just have a look at the individual functions that the cooker has for the oven cooking, because you will find that sometimes, especially if you do a lot of cooking, then some of those functions can make life a lot easier. Now number 8 on the list is, does the cooker offer programmable options? And what I mean by that is, do you have the option to cook while you're not there? As in, can you turn the oven on and off while you're not there? Some cookers will have a programmable function where you manually set it to say switch off, but you can actually time it to come on, which can be great if you're out. Clearly it's something you have to be comfortable with, your oven cooking while you're not there, which I know for a lot of people they won't be happy about. But just have a look to see if you've got that functionality, because again, if you do a lot of cooking, then that can save you time. Also, if you want to cook something for a long time, for example a Sunday joint, if you wanted to slow cook it, then you can find by having it switch on its own at say 4 or 5 in the morning, can save you having to get up. Also, if it hasn't got programmable ovens, check to make sure it's got a timer, and that's normally a little indicator on the front here, and that's things like a minute minder, so you might want to time something for 5 or 10 minutes. But just have a look at those different options. Also the display on the cooker, does it have a little clock on it? Now I know it sounds quite basic, but sometimes those things people have been used to on cookers, then they go to change the cooker and it's not got the clock on the front. Now as I say, it sounds very basic, but for a lot of people that can be quite a major thing. Now number 9 on the list, and for a lot of people it's probably quite high on the priorities, is the colour of the cooker. Now there's a huge range of colours. I know I've only got black and white here, the fairly safe colours, but there are a huge range of colours available. If you want an orange cooker, if you want a green cooker, a lime green one, then there's something out there for you. The only thing I consider is just consider clearly what other appliances you've got in the kitchen. Also, if you're thinking about changing the kitchen within a year or two, then just consider what colour units you're going to go for. Because what you can find is currently if you've got say a brown cooker that's been there for 10-15 years and don't necessarily go for the same colour as what you've had, just think a little bit more into the future. But that's number 9 on the list, the colour of the cooker. Now number 10, and I suppose for a lot of people this again like the colour is going to be a high priority, and that's the price of the cooker. Clearly they will vary a huge amount. You can start from say £150 just for a really basic 50cm cooker, going for several thousands of pounds that people can spend on a really fancy cooker. So I suppose budget is always a priority for a lot of people. So just have a look at the different prices available. The only thing I would say is don't always go for something that is a cheap cooker. You know, try and have a look through all the different options that I've suggested. You know, if there's something that has got say a programmable oven, has it got a double oven, there's so many different things to consider. So just have a look through before deciding on something that's cheap, because what you can find sometimes by paying a little bit more, then you can get something that is a lot suitable for you. So I hope you found it useful, the 10 things to consider before buying a cooker. Now I know there are probably things that I've missed off. I must admit there are quite a few other things that I could have put into the list, but from majority of people that we're talking to in our showroom, they tend to be the 10 main things. All I'd normally say is please click subscribe, click the thumbs up, and leave any comments below. I always ask for comments on my videos, whether it's good or bad. Also, if you think I have missed something, then just pop it in the comments. Or if you have got any questions on cookers, then again just pop it in the comments and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.